Well, guys, I hate to break it to you, but I've become the stereotype. I've become the man who gets angry about politics and then goes in his truck and makes a video. So I'm aware of how funny this is, that people make fun of the stereotype, but I look halfway presentable. And you're like, that's presentable? No, I look halfway presentable because the only time I look presentable is like when I'm going to work or getting ready for work. Other than that, I'm just all sweaty and greasy because I'm working out or tired. So, like, that's why I don't show my face that often, because I usually don't look good. But, no, we'll change things up and show the old mug for a little bit. You know how I used my early videos when I was driving back from work. You know, I used to do it in my car. But, what are we going to talk about? I don't know what we're going to talk about. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. I just feel just so frustrated about the state of our country and the state of, well, I guess in a nutshell, it's the people. People piss me off. You're like, oh yeah, people are stupid. People have always been stupid. People have always been dumb. And somehow, you know, society goes on. Civilization goes on. It's like, no, but to this degree, have they been this dumb? I would say no. I have seen people deteriorate over my lifetime. I have seen people, like, there were stupid people when I was a kid, obviously. I'm not saying, oh yeah, everyone was smart back then. But generally, on the whole, people were smarter. You can view this anecdotally through your own life, or you could look at IQ studies and see how IQ levels have been falling for decades now. So objectively and anecdotally, we can see that. We can see how this plays out. So we read a study that IQ levels are falling. We see it in real life with everything. Small things, big things. People lack critical thinking skills. People lack the ability to think of intangibles, to think of ideology or rules or double standards or unintended consequences of all these things that don't physically exist but have real world implications. People just flat out do not have that on the whole. I'm not saying I'm the only person who can critically think and everyone else is just a zombie. But the number of people that can do that is quickly dwindling. The average American is stupid even compared to the average American before, who was also stupid. There's a reason why, you know, dumb American is a stereotype throughout the world. We are so insulated from the world's problems that we create that we're just like, la, 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 we're just bumbling into, we don't know anything about the world. You know, the average European, they travel 5 feet, they're in another country. I know it's an exaggeration. The average European person has been to many, many different countries and speaks multiple languages. Usually like their own native language, English, and then maybe like a big second language or something. They know more about the world, they know more about different cultures. Most Americans have not traveled overseas, or if they have, it's like one time, and they not speak another language. We're getting off topic out here. Damn it, I got sidetracked again, motherfucker. Sidetracked the podcast. We're talking about how the average American is stupider than the average American, let's just say 30 years ago. The way they react to things is different. Now, where am I going with all this? If the government tried this COVID lockdown shit, everything it entails within lockdown, the businesses, the mask mandates, whatever, like everything with the lockdowns. If they tried that shit in the 90s, it would not fucking fly. People would say, no, I'm not doing that shit. People had a much more fuck the government, pro-liberty, pro-freedom attitude than they do now. In the 60s, they had even more than the 90s. Like, this has been a gradual result of the media and the educational system in this country that for decades now have been brainwashing people into thinking that, oh no, the government can do that, that's fine. No, this thing, oh, they didn't do that before, but now for everyone's safety, they can do that now. No, I know the government didn't do that back in the 1800s, you know, whenever they followed the Constitution more, but they are now because we're progressing. So that means the government is doing all these things that it didn't originally do. The Constitution, you know, fuck the Constitution. The Constitution is just an old document. It's archaic. It's out of date. It's not relevant now, you know, so it's okay that the government is doing all these things, literally thousands and thousands of different programs. and taxes and red tape and whatever. I mean, I don't need to list everything. That would take, you can write a whole book on everything that the government does that's unconstitutional. But it's the people's acceptance of it that is the problem. There's a reason why the saying is true: if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. Yes, one little thing the government is doing is no big deal. One little overregulation or one little change or doing this more often, this one little tax or this little mask mandate thing, like wearing a mask on the grand scheme of things, is no big deal. But why are people so upset about it? Because it's not based on science. It's on the principle of, you don't have the right to tell me what to wear. Yes, it's just a mask. Yes, it's just a shirt. Yes, it's just shoes. I don't fucking care. Because when you give them an inch, when you give the premise like, oh, it's a one little thing that they're making me do, so it's no big deal, then they'll keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going until we're in the mess that we are today, where the government controls every single aspect of our lives. They didn't do it overnight. It took decades and decades and decades. And again, let's go back to earlier in the segment. We're talking about intangibles. The intangibles of giving an inch, they'll take a mile. And people lack the ability to go back in time to think about how society was decades ago when they were younger and just say, wow, yeah, it's way different. It was way better now. You know, they don't notice day per day or week per week or year per year with little things. But if you somehow had the ability to go back in time and show them, look at all these things we were able to do now back then that we weren't able to do in 2021. Look how much easier it was to get a house, go to college, start a family, rise from poverty, buy a car, whatever, like American staples. Look how much easier it was to do it back then than now. People, foresight. No, the opposite of foresight. We're not looking in the future. We're looking behind. The ability to think intangibly about, well, what did it feel like back in the 90s or in the 60s or whatever. To read about it in a book if you weren't alive during a decade and imagine how it was. That's intangible. That is not a physical, we're not physically going back in time to see it with our own eyes. We have to read about it, to think about it. They lack the ability to do that. A lot of people, some people do that, and that's why they're so pissed off. Like, how many times have you heard people say, our country's being ruined, our country's changing for the worse, I don't like the way it's headed? Because they remember how it was before when they were younger, and it was better. These stupid lemmings just keep on voting for big government on both parties. I'm not going to leave the Republicans out of this, because the Republicans have had the presidents many, many times since the 50s and 60s, and they've had the Senate and House for many, many different times, and they've had governors. And the states legislation in many states for a very long time, and they keep on fucking shit up. They keep on making things worse and worse and worse in their states or nationwide. They keep on making things harder and harder and harder. They keep on expanding government control again and again and again. They keep on running up the deficit and debt more and more and more and more. And people just don't care. Some people do care. I have to caveat everything I say. It's not like, again, I'm the only one who sees these prophetic things. I'm the only one who cares about the dead. I'm the only one who cares about this stuff. No, there are hundreds of thousands, millions of people, let's say, that care about it. But we're spread out across the nation. We can't do anything about it. We're not in positions of power. If you have 3 million people, that's a lot of people. But not compared against how many people we have in this country, 350-something million. 3 million can't do anything about it. So that's what I'm saying. It's not libertarians. It's not saying libertarians would fix all these problems. It would fix most of the problems. I'll give you that. It's the best system that we have come up with to this point to solve these problems. But I'm not saying, oh, vote libertarian, everything will be okay. No, there are always going to be problems in the world. There's always going to be problems in government. There's always going to be problems in this country. But what's the best way to get the least amount of problems? To lessen the severity of these problems? That's the logical question. No, you can't get rid of problems. You can't just be willy-nilly. Life's always going to suck. Life's always going to have problems. But how to mitigate it to the least amount possible? And I believe if we would follow the Constitution and enact libertarianism in our principles when doing governance, it would make things much, much better. We have seen that historically when the government has been smaller, it has been easier for people to do the things I mentioned, house, college, wealth, whatever. Their rights were trampled on less. You know, we've always had taxes. Even before the income tax, we've always had taxes in this country. Even the most small governments of the founding fathers believed in taxes, even though taxation is still theft. So we can, for example, we can still admit that taxation is theft, but still admit that if we want to have a government, then we need to pay just a tiny bit just for the things it's supposed to do under the Constitution. If you don't want that and be an anarchist, I've already talked about anarchism a couple of times. If you literally want no government whatsoever and you are literally on your own, or you are literally with the community that you yourself build, fine, go ahead. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's going to suck for you. I think it's going to suck for when there's another group of people who just happen to have more guns and more men than you. There's no one's going to swoop in and save you. If you want to be in a constant state of warfare with other anarchists who just want your stuff and your people, I mean, I guess that, go ahead, man. You don't understand humanisation. But again, we already did a video about that many months ago, so we're getting off topic here. But I can still admit that taxation is theft and still admit, okay, if I pay like 5% of my income to fund, you know, the courts, the Senate, the Postal Service, which it's in the Constitution, the Founding Fathers wanted that, like 5 things, very minimalist government, the military, then that's fine. I accept that. That's fine. But these people want government to just do everything, every single fucking thing you can think of. It's like, that's not what the U.S. was supposed to be. That's why it is so unique that with this Constitution, that it wasn't based on ethnicity or language or, you know, anything like that. It was based on political philosophy, because we were a multiracial country even back when we were formed. It wasn't based on that. It wasn't based on, the government wasn't based off, oh, what do we think we should do? What do we think is the best thing we can do at any given moment? It wasn't like that. It's like, no, you follow this Constitution that we wrote for you, and that's what the government is supposed to do. If you want to free-form think ideas, go to literally any other fucking country in the world, because that's all they're doing. And the New Zealand government just does whatever it wants. Oh, I think this thing's going to help people. That takes away their rights, and it's really costly and it's really bad. No, we should do it. Look, click. Okay, we're doing it now. Every other government has been big government. And we were the one government that was limiting ourselves up until recently in our country's history. I'm not saying, 10 seconds ago. I'm talking about decades and decades ago. But if you want to go back to just the 60s, so before the 60s, we were doing a pretty good job of limiting government and infringing on people's rights as little as possible, relatively. Obviously, there's always caveats. It was like, the people are like, no, but in the 50s, they did all these things, you know, like with the Japanese internment. Yeah, that was bad. That was a step downward. It's been slow. It's been a slow decline in these things, and it's rapidly increased, I'd say, since like 2001 was one big catalyst, 2008 was another catalyst, COVID was another catalyst. So you can always go back in time more and say, oh, the government infringed the rights here, here, and here. So why are you saying it's good then, relatively compared to now? The 90s were good compared to now. The early 2000s were good compared to now. It's all relative. All right, so with editing, it's like 14 minutes-ish. How to wrap this up? What do we do? What do ordinary people do when there's a huge chunk of the population that is just rabid big government, rabid anti-liberty, anti-freedom, and hates their guts, that just vote every single chance they get for people who just want to take everything away from you, everything you enjoy, everything that you are owed, that is your rights as Americans, they want to take away from you. They are just foaming at the mouth, just begging, take away your rights, take away your rights, make this harder, take more of your taxes, make your life more miserable. The big government people are waging war against the small government people and the people who are just not on either camp, just ordinary people who aren't really political or, you know, just don't really lean one way or another. They're just trying to make their livelihood and provide for their family and have a good time. And they're like, no, you can't do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, blah, blah, blah. You can't do this. This is xenophobic. This is racist. This is bigoted. This is, no, we have to give, you have to give over half your income to all these things, all these programs, whatever. Oh, you can't defend yourself with firearms. You can't say anything we don't like. We're going to call it hate speech. you don't get a right to a trial or a jury or anything, and all of these things. We're just going to decree with executive orders and government mandates, and governors are going to do ABC, and just nothing's going to challenge him. But when does it stop? When will you leave us the fuck alone? What is the end result of a huge chunk of the population that has the government on their side constantly waging war against another chunk of the population and against themselves? To be honest, but they're just stupid to realize it. Like, they're hurting themselves. That's why Californians, they voted for big government. The big government makes it impossible for them to live, so they flee to Texas or Florida. Then they keep on voting Democrat. It's like, you're hurting yourselves with these policies too, you know. It's not just hurting me or random other people. You're shooting everyone in the foot. There are objective policies. Sorry, there are policies that are objectively bad for everyone except, like, the crony capitalist politicians at the top. It even hurts the people voting for him, the Democrats who are voting for him. But they're too stupid to fucking realize it. What is, I keep on asking, what is the end result of all this? Well, either two outcomes. And you might think they're extreme, but when we keep pushing to the extremes that we are, if we're just going to continue down this path of 2020 is just going to lead into more of 2020, but in 2021, and then 2022 is going to be 2020 part 3, and it just keeps going and going and going with more extreme measures by the governments at all levels. The end results are going to be extreme. If you do extreme behavior and you keep doing it, the outcome is naturally going to be extreme too. Either one, they just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and everyone just bends over and takes it, and there's no resistance, and we live in some dystopian, China-like hellhole where the government is control of every single thing that you can think of, even more than now. It already seems like they are. But just keep going and going and going. Like in those dystopian sci-fi future where you have to, like, scan your government's ID that's imprinted on your wrist, you know, to enter a train or something. You know, China's already doing that when you have low social credit score. If you post something anti-government on the internet, for example, not only will they delete it right off the bat, they might send goons to harass you and say, no, Conrad, don't post that. Your social credit's going to go down. And when your social credit gets so low that you can't board a plane or a train or an automobile, planes, trains, automobiles, you can't get a loan to buy a car. They're already doing that in China. That's the end result of big government. We're headed that way. When people are saying communism in America, we are doing many communist things already. So either we end up like China or some dystopian sci-fi future, but it's not cool because we don't have, like, jet bikes and lasers. Everything just sucks. Or there's a war. There's a balkanization. It's the country breaks up. Small government people on one side, big government. If you want to do your big government shit on that side of the country, go the fuck ahead. I'm sick of it. There's going to be fights. There's going to, either political or physical. Either politically we split, or physically people just snap. You can only push a person so far before they react with violence. I don't understand why, if you keep pushing someone to the ground and say you can't feed your family, you can't get health care, you can't go on vacation, you're just stuck working all the time. You can't go anywhere. You can't enjoy anything. Your family's going to be poor. They're never going to own a house. Their health is going to suck. Their lives are just going to suck, and your life is going to suck no matter what you do. You can only push people in that direction for so long before people snap. We're already seeing that with people committing suicide by a huge uptick in suicides in 2020, by the thousands, tens of thousands more. Soon they're not going to take that anger out on themselves, they're going to take it out on other people. We already saw that with the march, the riot, the Capitol riot. People, I was in the videos, people were so pissed off about the situation they were in that they felt they were just so mad that they exploded into violence and anger and, attacked the police officers, stormed their way in. We're going to keep on seeing this, and it's going to get worse. If you don't stop bullying someone, their reaction is going to be worse. I don't understand why this isn't some, new quantum mechanics theory. Like, it's basic human psychology, sociology that it's very lacking, that people do not understand. And it's just very frustrating to see all this, to work so hard for the things you want in life and for your family and for your future, and just see your chances of being able to do those things slowly diminish each and every year. This thing is harder to do. This thing's more expensive. This thing requires much more steps. You're evil. You're disgusting. You're racist. You're a xenophobe. You're a bigot. Whatever. Just constant barrage again and again and again and again and again. And just, how many people are sick of it? I'm sick of it. I was sick of it. I was angry before 2020. I hated the government before it was cool. Oh, man. So I guess that's it. That's just, there's no solution. I'm not offering, oh, here's my solution. Remember. No, it's like, here's a situation. It sucks. I'm frustrated. So I need to get it off my skin.